Hi, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer, an energy worker, a channel, a medium. I create programmed crystals that'll help you with a bunch of different issues. I do readings. People keep writing me and saying, do you do readings? Yes, I do. I'm actually right now, the end of March and the first part of April, I'm doing a coaching special too, where 3 hours are at a deal. You can check that out at tdjacobs.com under Consultations. So this video is kind of like a Life on Earth 2019 update. And I've talked about this topic at different times over the years, since maybe 2011, 2010, 2011. And I do have a playlist here on YouTube that is just videos on 2012. But I want to explain something to you to help you understand what life on Earth right now entails. You're seeing it, but you may not understand the bird's eye view that I've channeled and that is helping a lot of my clients and students navigate things a little more efficiently and constructively. So essentially, you know, if you were paying attention to spiritual teachers or metaphysicians, you know, a few years ago, you would have heard that in 2012 would be the end of the Mayan calendar, and that maybe there is some great alignment or some great clearing or advancing into another dimension or something, right? You might have heard these kinds of grandiose things that made you say, either that is great, or sounds too good to be true, or that must be nonsense. And what in 2008, I started asking the Ascended Master channel, whose name is Jehudi. That's we don't know exactly how it's pronounced, but that's kind of how he says it in English through my mouth. And that's his Egyptian name, and his also known as Hermes, which many of you have heard of, and also Thoth or Toth, and also Saint Germain, the Ascended Master. So this being, who is a teacher, and he hangs around to help us in whatever way we need, to evolve. He helps us learn and process and understand. And a lot of what he does is from this bird's eye view. So zooming out to 30,000 feet and explaining some purpose. Why would your soul have you experience this? Why would we as a collective undergo this? And I started asking this being then in 2008, hey, what's going to happen in 2012? Because I'm hearing these things and I'm not quite sure if I can believe any of it. And he said, okay, great, here are all these teachings. So he started to explain to me a couple things that I couldn't really see until it started to happen. One of them is the veils between dimensions start to go away or dissolve. That sounds like a very broad, very vague statement, but what that means is that you now have more access to various lifetimes of memories, you as an individual. And the idea is that, imagine you're in a room with a bunch of cubicles. You're in one of the cubicles, and over time, the walls around you just start to slowly go down. So instead of, you know, you're making a phone call or whatever, you're hearing this other person make a phone call. Instead of kind of, you know, kind of blandly, gently, vaguely overhearing their voice over there, now the wall's down and you're looking right in that person's eyes, and you hear that every word that person's saying, and you can't even think or think straight, because that person's thing is, you know, overtaking. Your most important, as yet unresolved, most dense, painful, most guilty or ashamed, whatever, other life issues, anger, sorrow, grief, jealousy, bitterness, despair, depressiveness, hopelessness, whatever it is, the most impactful one is now like that, staring at you, and you might not be able to think straight because this thing occupies you. So that's kind of where we are. Welcome to Earth. That's what's going on right now. So whatever it is for you as an individual, it's been with you forever, but for some reason, now it's inescapable. This is the reason. Okay, now, if we think about the Mayan calendar, you know, to its end as a kind of countdown, like when that calendar completed, you know, something ended, maybe something else began, we can look at it this way. At the end of the Mayan calendar, that is the time when we are now in possession of all of the tools for evolving consciousness that we need to progress. That sounds wonderful. But because, so basically new tools, new abilities. The evolution of consciousness, being able to see more into these other lifetimes. The veils, the cubicle walls are receded, the veils are parted, walls are dissolving. But also, more tools are in place. So in the middle of you dealing with stuff, if you feel like you're a light worker, if you feel like you're an energy worker, or you have some kind of spiritual message, in the middle of your garbage, you probably also have the opportunity to, or have already done so, developed different skills and tools and approaches. So it's those two things happening at once. So any particular individual has the opportunity to develop these new tools. And every individual must face the most important, as yet unresolved, painful, garbage, karmic crap from many lifetimes. Now, the way that I understand a human as consciousness is that consciousness that exists across time. So right now in this body, my name is Tom Jacobs, whatever. I was born in 1972 in Ohio on Earth. This is my skin color, whatever. I was born into this kind of tradition, whatever, religious, cultural, whatever. But my spirit, my soul exists across time in a bunch of bodies, erupting into 3D or the Earth dimension in a bunch of different bodies. Now, in my unconscious are the records or memories of all of those lifetimes. So you're going to have more than just the most important things come up, but the important things are going to be the loudest, and they demand attention. So since the end of the Mayan calendar, when that came and went, and a lot of people think it was, the winter solstice of 2012, late December, and they're kind of two different times, two different end dates with different scholars doing different calculations, essentially. And the earlier one, the one that seems more right to me, was October 28, 2011. And that seems truer to me. And then the time from then to the winter solstice of 2012 is actually the beginning, like the first chunk of an adjustment period. So now we're in this phase that will last a long time. But you might not know that because you think since the Mayan calendar ended, something is over. What's essentially over is being blocked from being able to access the information in your unconscious from other lifetimes. So if I say to you, the veils are departed, and sounds very magical, well, the veils within you, the barriers within your own consciousness from your unconscious selves, those are also gone. Hence the cubicle walls down, and suddenly you're listening to somebody and somebody's talking to you and saying, this is my problem and I'm depressed and angry, and you're like, you're taken over. You're filled with that person's energy and emotion. So this kind of like part of the manual for life on Earth right now that, I'm trying to spread this message in case it's helping people. And I hear from my clients and my students, it really does. But I want you to realize that your mind, your linear logical self, your left brain, considers that, is that my left? Yes, it is. Considers that its agenda is the only worthwhile agenda. So now what I'm talking about, the stuff coming up, it has to do with beliefs and thoughts and ideas and attitudes, but it has much to do with emotions. So to say you're an energetic being, your consciousness that exists across time, that is to say you have all kinds of different bubbles and waves of energy within your unconscious, and different ones will be stirred at different times, and you will feel feelings come up. So we're in a phase, humans on Earth, of needing to learn to deal with our emotions, our feelings, and our fears, our needs, but really a lot about dealing with our feelings and fears and pains and regrets and guilt and shame and all those things. So it's kind of like, welcome to how we live now. And I'm offering you this message, and a lot of the other things that I do, I offer in the same spirit, because you're not doing it wrong if you feel confused or if you feel pain, or if you have some shame or regret that keeps coming up. You know, just the very fact that suffering exists does not indicate that you deserve punishment. Even if you make what is very obviously a mistake, that doesn't mean you deserve the consequences. But we do create through our choices, through our attitudes, beliefs, and what we choose. We assert free will, we have to deal with the consequences. But if it's a negative coming back to us, it doesn't mean we deserve it. So I recommend getting grounded. This has several components to the process. Sending cords into the earth, like imagination-wise, willing that cords go to the earth from your root chakra, your first, and also from the bottoms of your feet simultaneously, if at all possible. Like occasionally I've worked with people who have like a, you know, someone once had a tailbone injury and had a hard time sending energy through the root chakra, but could do it through the feet, and and similarly somebody else has an issue, you know, with the feet, but could do it through the root. So as much as you can, send cords into the earth, breathe the energy of the earth up into your body. I have a free download on my website, the 13-minute grounding meditation, which can help with that. But this is also, groundedness also requires being willing to be in your body and willing to feel what you feel, because in your body are these waves and bubbles of energy that you feel as emotion that are trying to come up to be expressed. So groundedness is this long-term practice you cultivate, willingness to feel your feelings. And then as you work on this, you do what Jehudi, this Ascended Master, calls, you work on the strength of the container of consciousness. Today I was hanging out with him and he kept saying container for consciousness, but he used to always say container of consciousness. And it's the idea that while you're alive, while you're embodied, your consciousness is tied to your physical body. If you don't intentionally use it, if you don't operate consciously and intentionally, you might feel pulled this way, affected by this idea and that fear. You know, until you're grounded and centered, you can't really cultivate and strengthen the container of consciousness, which is the intersection of your consciousness with your body. So the more grounded you are, the more you cultivate strength and stamina with this container for consciousness. You create one, and then when difficult things come up, or in your world around you, or in your own emotional stuff or other life stuff, you're not as thrown. You're not as pulled to one side or thrown off course. So I was talking to a client today, a new coaching client who's taking advantage of this deal, and she basically was just really frustrated because she's a bit overwhelmed by all the energies and emotions, right? They're coming up. And I was saying, this is totally normal. Like from my perspective, as an energy worker, as a healer, as a channel, as a counseling astrologer, it's completely normal right now for these reasons. That's kind of, I've been thinking about doing this video for a couple of months, and then talking to her today, I just said, yeah, I gotta get this message out. I want people to understand that the energetic backdrop for life on earth right now is the cubicle walls are gone, and you're hearing that person as if it's you, and you can't remember your own narrative because you're listening to the complaint or the pain from this other life. So we're all experiencing different energies and emotions. We all, many of us may be experiencing intuitive openings or psychic openings, or getting messages and dreams more than usual, or having deja vu, or feeling like things are guided, or synchronicities are happening more often. These things are all possible. And part of that is the veils between dimensions are gone since the end of the Mayan calendar, like increasingly over the last 6-7 years. But part of it is that is more our natural, that's more our nature. Where consciousness, our linear logical mind will say, we are brains, we are minds, we are logic machines, right? Who happen to be in bodies and happen to have these pesky hearts with these inconvenient feelings. But in fact, our true nature is to be consciousness and to operate on different levels. So one thing I would say, if you are feeling at times overwhelmed by emotion and feel scrambled by somebody else's feeling scrambled, right? Or you know, your empathic thing is turned on and you're not quite sure how to ground, right? Ground. But I want you to really understand this backdrop that we're all working in front of, as far as I've seen it through the channeling that I've done. Because you're not crazy, but you may at times feel overwhelmed or thrown into some particular energetic emotional state that makes you feel crazy. Like you might have uncovered through some, basically because it's time for you to deal with it, you might have uncovered a depressiveness, or you might say depression. I like to say depressive, because depression seems like, you know, the end of the line. And if you go there, you'll never come back. It just seems like very final depression. It's like, oh yeah, I went down that road and got stuck. Depressiveness is actually natural. We come and go, but we can get stuck in it. Meaninglessness, hopelessness, you know, despair, existential crises, anguish, you know, depressiveness, right? We can actually, you know, wallow in that or feel stuck in that. But the thing, I lost my point because I was trying to explain this. Oh, whatever it is that comes up, you might feel that it's taking you over. Depressiveness, anger, all those things, any of those things. You might feel that it's taking you over, and you might feel, so to speak, stuck in this little room that's defined by it. And you're like, how the hell did I get in this? You know, how do I get out of this room? You're bouncing off the walls. You're not crazy. You're multidimensional. So whatever feeling or fear you're having come up loudly needs expression. But again, the container for consciousness, grounding, and listening to these feelings and emotions. And I recommend giving them voice, giving them narrative freedom. Listen to yourself. Why am I feeling this? What does it feel like? And so then all this process also involves or requires being willing to feel and then not judging what you feel. So obviously there's a lot to this process, and this is what I do with people in ongoing coaching work. It can include energy work. It doesn't always. Sometimes we talk about things while I'm taking info from the guides and the Ascended Master and looking at the person's astrology chart. But sometimes it is energy work. When somebody is up against, you know, this difficult thing, then we try to shift the how the energy is set up and how things are functioning and flowing. But you can do a lot on your own with listening to the parts of you without judgment, knowing that it's temporary, it's not really who you are, it's simply something that needs expressing, right? And also remembering this context, I'm trying to sum it up because we're coming to the end of the video, trying to remembering the context that the most important, dense, unhappy, complex of issues from a bunch of lifetimes, or one major other lifetime that's representative of a bunch of lifetimes. A theme your soul is having to explore, some huge trauma or defeat or depressiveness, whatever. Grief, sorrow, anger. It's a huge thing. You can no longer escape it. You have to deal with it. So I'm not trying to be weird when I say this, but I'm wishing you well. I'm wishing you good luck, but it's really, luck here is really, good fortune here is really if you are willing to decide that you're stronger than whatever the feeling is that comes up. And that comes through grounding, developing the container for consciousness, and really strengthening your willful resolve to be willing to face difficult things. But anyway, that's just a little update. I haven't done a Mayan Calendar video in a long time, and I wanted to state these things. It just seems like the last few months I've drawn several people who seem to have the same kind of thing where they say, oh, sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not going crazy. This is what's happening to people. And even with a client today, I told her a couple of anecdotes from my own last few months, just so she didn't feel so alone, because I'm going through this too. So I do this work. I'm a professional intuitive. Essentially, I'm a professional empath and healer, right? And I have my own things that come up, and they're pretty intense. And the more, if you work on yourself in any way, in any honest way where you deal with what looks like shadow or what feels negative and you actually process and move through it, you will, because I don't think just wishing for the best and hoping things get better is actual self-work at this moment. It's my bias of being very Plutonian, being a Scorpio type person, we have to transform in the face of negativity instead of ignoring it or denying it, is my philosophy. But if you're doing that work, you are going to find that as you clear certain things, you descend deeper. So after a few years, the issues are very big because you're experienced and you've cleared away the stuff on the upper shelves, or the stuff that, like, if you think about it descending under the surface of the ground, you're digging down. Like, think about the layers of an archaeological dig. Yeah, this stratum, that stratum, that stratum. So pretty soon you've done 6 or 10 different strata, and what's down there is bigger. And so I'm in that kind of phase right now, and I do help people understand that and kind of work with that. But it also, what it comes with is a greater, need for me to continue to develop the container for consciousness. So it seems like it gets harder, but it's actually easier because I'm better at it and I have more faith that A, everything's temporary, and B, that feeling is not who I am. It's something that needs addressing. So anyway, thanks for your time and energy. I hope some of these ideas have been helpful. And you can keep in touch with me, tom@tdjacobs.com. And the end of April, the end of March and the beginning of April 2019, I'm doing this coaching package of 3-hour deal you can read about on my consultations page. I will put the link in the description thing of the video below. Anyway, take care, and also check out my other site, healingsuicide.com, which tells a story about soul and suicide and how to deal with difficult emotions that may have us leaning toward that kind of a hopeless choice. All right, take care of yourself.